Mrs. Bennet learns a wealthy unmarried gentleman has taken a nearby country house. She decides at once that one of her daughters must be the match. Mr. Bennet pretends indifference, then quietly enjoys how easily he can provoke his wife's imagination. He agrees to meet the new neighbour, but on his own terms. Jane keeps her hopes quiet, but she cannot help picturing what a change in fortune might mean for the family. She tries to be sensible, even while she wants to believe. Elizabeth listens to the excitement with a dry smile and makes a quiet vow not to be swept up by it. She wants evidence, not wishes. At the first assembly, Bingley's warmth wins people quickly. He seems to enjoy the room as if it were an old friend. Darcy's reserve reads as pride to everyone watching. He stays apart, as if the room must prove itself worthy of him. Elizabeth overhears Darcy dismiss her as tolerable and decides she can laugh at him without effort. The insult gives her clarity. She will not seek his approval. Miss Bingley watches the room like a judge, measuring worth by manners and connections. She is quick to enjoy any weakness she thinks she sees. Jane's sweetness makes her easy to admire, and she leaves the evening with quiet hope. She refuses to assume too much, but she cannot help feeling encouraged. Elizabeth notices how easily affection can begin with nothing more than attention and timing. She keeps her own feelings guarded, even as she watches others drift toward hope. Jane receives an invitation to stay at a nearby country house, and her mother pushes the opportunity forward with urgency. Jane agrees, hoping for kindness more than conquest. Elizabeth receives word that Jane has fallen ill and goes to her at once. She refuses to let formality outrank affection. Darcy notices Elizabeth's independence and cannot ignore it, even when it offends his habits. His attention begins to shift from judgment to fascination. Miss Bingley decides to treat Elizabeth's presence as an offence that must be corrected. Her politeness becomes a sharp-edged performance. Elizabeth's quick mind turns every small conversation into a test of character. She begins to see how pride can hide behind good breeding. Bingley's good nature makes him easy to trust, and he keeps returning to Jane with steady attention. He seems happiest when he is simply kind. Elizabeth returns home once Jane recovers, carrying new impressions she doesn't yet know how to name. She senses the story around Darcy is not finished. Mr. Collins arrives with loud confidence and rehearsed compliments that never quite land. He believes his own importance is self-evident. Elizabeth recognizes Mr. Collins's vanity almost immediately and decides to endure it with patience. She senses trouble in how seriously he takes himself. Wickham arrives with easy charm and a story that sounds like wounded virtue. Elizabeth finds herself wanting to believe him. Elizabeth hears a tale of betrayal and injustice and lets her indignation grow. Prejudice feels like moral certainty when it comes so easily. Darcy watches Elizabeth from a distance and realizes she affects him more than he wants to admit. His restraint becomes its own kind of confession. Mr. Collins decides he must marry into the family and treats the plan like a duty, not a choice. He mistakes persistence for persuasion. Elizabeth refuses Mr. Collins without hesitation because she refuses a life built on obligation and flattery. Her decision is calm, final, and unromantic. Mrs. Bennet reacts as if Elizabeth has personally ruined the family's future. Her anxiety turns into theatrical outrage. Charlotte makes a practical choice and accepts Mr. Collins, believing security matters more than romance. Elizabeth is shocked, but she cannot deny Charlotte's logic. Jane tries to stay hopeful, but the silence from Bingley's side becomes painful. She refuses to accuse anyone, even when it hurts. Bingley leaves the country house with more reluctance than anyone suspects. His good nature makes him easy to guide, even against his own happiness. Elizabeth hears of the departure and feels anger sharpen into certainty. She decides Darcy must be at the centre of it. Maria happily accompanies Elizabeth on a visit to Charlotte, treating every change of scenery like an adventure. Elizabeth tries to be cheerful for her sake. Charlotte welcomes Elizabeth with calm confidence in her new home. She shows how carefully she has arranged her life to suit her needs. Lady Catherine speaks as if her opinions are laws of nature. Elizabeth realises politeness here is another kind of pressure. Elizabeth answers with restraint, refusing to be intimidated. She senses Lady Catherine is used to obedience, not sincerity. Darcy arrives unexpectedly, and Elizabeth is unsettled by how quickly her composure is tested. She tells herself she feels only annoyance. Elizabeth begins to notice Darcy's attention and cannot decide whether it insults or confuses her. She grows more alert to every small shift. Darcy wrestles with feelings he believes he should not have. His pride turns affection into a private battle of restraint. Darcy finally declares himself and makes it sound like a sacrifice as much as a confession. Elizabeth hears the pride inside the tenderness and cannot accept it. Elizabeth refuses Darcy, furious at what she believes he has done to Jane and to others she pities. She speaks with a clarity that surprises even herself. Darcy leaves wounded and proud, then chooses to explain himself in writing. He does not ask for forgiveness, he asks to be understood. Elizabeth reads Darcy's letter and feels her confidence crack. She realises how easily she judged and how much she wanted to be right. Wickham's charm begins to look like calculation when Elizabeth replays his stories against Darcy's account. What once sounded romantic now feels carefully practiced. Elizabeth returns home changed, trying to hide it behind humour. Her mind keeps circling one thought: she may have been unjust. Lydia treats life as a performance and mistakes attention for safety. She wants excitement more than sense. Mr. Bennet hears warnings about Lydia's behaviour and answers with dry wit that hides his worry. He knows too late is still possible. Elizabeth travels with relatives and tries to let the past loosen its grip. She is surprised by how often Darcy's letter returns to her mind. Elizabeth visits a grand estate and expects only scenery, not emotion. She feels suddenly exposed to her own changing opinion. Darcy appears unexpectedly and behaves with careful courtesy. Elizabeth realises change can be real and that it can make regret sharper. Elizabeth tries to respond with equal civility, but embarrassment and gratitude blur together. She cannot decide what she hopes for anymore. Miss Bingley returns with sharpened contempt, hoping to reclaim control through ridicule. Her bitterness exposes how threatened she feels. News arrives that Lydia has disappeared with Wickham, and Elizabeth's hope collapses into dread. She sees, in an instant, how fragile reputation can be. Mrs. Bennet falls into panic, convinced the family is ruined forever. Her fear becomes loud because she does not know what else to do with it. Mr. Bennet leaves to search for answers and discovers how little control a father truly has. His humour fails him when he is alone. Elizabeth believes Darcy's regard is lost forever, and she mourns it more than she wants to admit. Shame and affection tangle until she cannot separate them. Wickham chooses comfort over honour and leaves chaos behind him. He remains charming even in absence, which makes the damage worse. Darcy acts quietly to repair what he can, refusing to claim credit. His pride finally serves something better than himself. Lydia returns married, thrilled by attention and blind to consequences. Elizabeth hears the cheer and feels only exhaustion. Elizabeth realises Darcy's help was real, and her feelings change without permission. She begins to hope again, carefully, as if hope might break. Bingley returns and brings warmth back into the house like sunlight after a storm. Jane's happiness is quiet, but unmistakable. Jane receives Bingley's devotion with grace and disbelief, as if joy must prove it can stay. When she accepts, it looks like relief more than triumph. Lady Catherine arrives to demand obedience and to secure a future she believes she controls. Elizabeth's refusal threatens her sense of order. Elizabeth refuses to promise anything, choosing her own happiness over intimidation. For the first time, she feels fully unafraid of consequence. Darcy returns changed by humility and hope, and this time he speaks without pride. He asks for Elizabeth's hand as if he finally understands what it means to ask. Elizabeth accepts, and the victory is not over Darcy, but over her own worst certainty. Love arrives as understanding, not conquest. Looking back, Elizabeth sees how pride and prejudice shaped every early judgment. She steps forward into a life chosen with clearer eyes.